This is gonna be like my Jordan flu game episode.
Well, you sound great, so I got to know where you're going at already.
We are dealing with some difficulties over here on my end of the studio. There is a little fly that has been flying around this room and trying to hit me in the face, and it is driving me insane. So, if you hear me freak out at any point during this episode, it's because I've been trying to get this fly for like 10 minutes, and I am so incredibly over it.
Well, forget the Jordan flu game. You watch Breaking Bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you want to just make this the Fly episode and we can actually just throw the outline out and get like really deep for like an hour? talk about our goals and our purposes and you
want to talk about funny random show episode things that make you go down like a deep hole or completely pivot from everything you've been doing. I am very into superhero Marvel shows, so I've been watching the Agatha all along on Disney. And
sneaky good, by the way, like unexpectedly kind of great
and like very Halloween vibes. So like perfect for right now.
Sure.
But I kind of got distracted because I was watching Thursday Night Football. It would have been a few weeks ago. And for those who don't know, I loved the show Lost back in the day. If you don't know it, you can look it up. It's a plane crash thing. But the creators
I don't know why. I'm sorry. I just think like, I don't know how you describe Lost. You're right, but it's just like the plane crash thing.
It's a plane crash.
I don't know how you describe it. And it is. It's one of the all-time shows.
It's a show. It is a show that is 6 seasons that absolutely meant nothing. But that's a whole nother debate. But the creators came out with a new show, and it's called From. And Paramount Plus, not Paramount Plus, Prime was promoting it, and it looks good. And the main character, I think the guy's name was Michael in Lost, is the main character in this show. So he's on that front screen. I'm like, oh, I really like that actor. Let me check out this show. And it's a creepy as hell show. And I'm like, oh, it's like Halloween. This is cool. Let's check it out. I watched the first episode and I'm locked in. Like, I'm like, this is the show. This is a great show. I love this. Episode 2, I'm eating it up. Episode 3, loving it. Go to click on episode 4 and it goes, hi, this show is through MGM Plus and you've already reached your limit of episodes you're allowed to watch for free through Prime. So if anybody wants an MGM Plus account, I ended up getting one because
they got you. Okay.
Dude, I'm telling you, you need a show and here's the thing. MGM Plus lets you do a 7-day trial.
Okay.
So if you can bust out 3 seasons in 7 days, it might be worth it. But I would say wait, because season 3, they're still coming out with episodes, which is why I ended up buying them. I was able to binge watch up to episodes that are happening right now, but then I needed to wait on them to come out with episodes. So, here we are. But
I mean, hey, they got, like you said,
as a way off tangent, you should watch that show if you like creepy things. It's really good. I enjoy it a lot. And I also saw it starting to get promoted. I think Hulu was starting to promote it too. So I think there's some good feedback happening on that show now.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool if it just pulled up somewhere else. Like, that's the issue with all the different streaming services now, right? Like, it's, you still have the main 4, 5, 6, but it's like, listen, I yearn for the days of 2011 Netflix when you could watch literally everything. Like, I learned the other day how difficult it is to, like, watch Mad Men. And, like, I've seen it all. But if I want to go back and watch a random one, it's just, like, you have to have, like, AMC Plus or something like that. It's like, I'm not
just... I wish... AMC Plus, just because like Walking Dead and all those like side off Walking Dead episodes and shows they have now, I'm like, I would love to watch that at my own pace, but I don't want to pay for an AMC Plus account.
Yeah, like at some point it's got to add up. Agatha though, sneaky good, definitely fitting the Halloween theme right now. But yeah, I mean, Marvel TV has been very hit or miss, and the fact that like, I mean, I know this a little bit of spin-off of WandaVision too, which was one of the more successful Marvel TV shows, at least in my eyes, but yeah, it's good to see, like, they need something unexpectedly good right now, and I like where it's going. I'm interested to see what they do with these last 2 episodes here.
I also wanted to point out, I did see, I think League Pass, you can get it through Prime, because I was on there yesterday and I saw a whole thing that like I don't know if it was a discount or anything, but obviously that leads us back to the whole purpose of this podcast and episode and show is the NBA is officially back. I also am officially back because I went MIA for like a week and a half, I feel like.
Well, it's crazy because in behind the scenes, like we had knocked out 2 episodes, so it didn't really feel like you were gone that long. But like I realized that we're like, yeah, it's been 2.5 weeks because we did the Western Conference preview episode and that dropped now 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then I did shout out to Chase and shout out to Carlton for joining us. Last episode, we talked our little Eastern Conference episode. But yeah, dude, we're back. Season 12. We're locked in. 2 games under. Yeah, that is wild. 2 games for each team, mostly, I think, have 2 games now at this point.
Some have 1, but for the most part, it's 2. Like Kings,
either way,
Spurs, yeah, but either way.
The point is though, as well, y'all have been waiting for our book reports for a long time too. We did a few weeks ago, but
if we're losing points for like submitting these things late, I think at best we can get a C- at this point.
Yeah, for sure. We already tanked. Like at that point, you would like begin to have the like debate of whether you want to turn it in at all. It's like, oh, is this worth it, or should I just take the L?
Yeah.
But nevertheless, better late than never. We're gonna start. I have the Wizards. Justin has the Warriors. Just, you want to start first?
Sure. Yeah, I'll start first. My my book report on the Warriors, I titled it Deep Dubs ?
Okay, all right, nice.
And I titled it because that has been what we have been getting spoon-fed through the media and the team. It definitely feels like, behind closed doors, the team talked about that messaging getting out in some way. I know Wiggins said it the other day, said he thinks they're the deepest team in the league, which is interesting. But to get to that point, we got to go back to last season. They're coming off their longest off season in recent history. They got eliminated by the Kings in the first round play-in tournament. Since then, they lost Klay Thompson. They lost Chris Paul, but they did add Buddy Hield, D'Anthony Melton, Kyle Anderson, and we still have some younger guys on the team that we will get into in a second that are hoped and expected to potentially take some big leaps. So if depth is the way that they're going to try to approach this, I would say from an offensive standpoint, we shouldn't be too worried about the Warriors, right? Steph Curry alone with his 3-point shooting is going to be more than enough for the most part, and they've kind of proved that in the preseason. They averaged 38.2% as a team in their 3-point shooting. I wonder if that's sustainable throughout the season. But for Golden State, it wouldn't surprise me with some of the shooters they got. I know Buddy Hield was one of the better ones percentage-wise last year. Steph Curry is always in the top there. So we'll see where that goes. Now, when you transition to the defense, that's obviously where some concerns come in. And I say that in general for transition defense too. They allowed the 6th most points in transition per game. They were at 1.17 points per possession and the 3rd most in the NBA. The Warriors were the 17th percentile in transition defense overall. They had the 15th ranked defense in the NBA last year. So that is where I think some improvement can happen. I'm not necessarily worried, again, to reiterate, about the Golden State Warriors offense. Now, people were praising Klay Thompson. One person in particular who is getting a lot of buzz in the offseason and played last year is Brandon Pojemski, which is always hard for me to say, or AirPods, as they say.
I was just going to say pods,
which is such a great nickname. He averaged 5.5 rebounds during his rookie season. He is a guard, it's worth mentioning. It put him in the 98th percentile among NBA guards. Very not normal for that many. And they wonder if him in that position could erupt as a scorer. And like I said, with the offseason buzz, with the depth being talked about, it seems like the team thinks that could be the case. Now, we did have a weird situation in game 1 for the Warriors where Pod went 24 minutes on the court, scored 0 points on 0 from 5 from shooting and 0 from 4 from 3, yet still had the team's highest plus minus, which is insane. He did have 7 rebounds and 4 assists. So shows he's doing some intangible things, which is, Kevin, you even said it off the mic, a little Iggy-esque, if you will. So I wonder if that's the case for him. Obviously, a player to watch in terms of hype around and how much national attention he potentially starts to get if we do start having more and more successful games. I know in game 2, he bounced back from his scoring problems and had 15 points in the game. Um, Something I thought was interesting to kind of drive home that fact with Brandon is ESPN's ranks of the Warriors players. They have Steph Curry as the 6th best player in the NBA. They got Draymond Green at number 66. And then you would think the next player on that list might be Andrew Wiggins, but that is not the case. That's where Pod come in. He's ranked 78th in the NBA. Wiggins is 90 at number 4 on the team in terms of rank. So that's kind of the look at the Warriors and what we should expect from them this coming season. Now, it already looks like it's paying off pretty well. They're 2-0. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves on, those kind of reactions, but it seems like already a little more confidence in the depth in the team than maybe in years past.
Oh, yeah. Well, because they are. I mean, simply put, they're deeper than they have been here in a little bit. I mean, obviously a huge transition year. Like, this is the first year just identity-wise. Like, without Klay Thompson there, you still got Steph and you still got Dre, so it's not completely different. But yeah, I mean, this is the first year in a decade plus that Klay Thompson isn't suiting up there. So it's getting over that awkwardness a little bit. The good news for them, you're right. I mean, really, they got kind of gifted a wonderful start here, with big wins over Portland and Utah, teams that they should be beating, but teams that they, pretty thoroughly dominated in both those games. You got the Clippers up next without Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, it is because the young guys are interesting because, I mean, you've got Moses Moody locked up, who's going to play minutes for them. A guy who Steve Kerr seems pretty high on. You waxed poetic about Pods. Pods is great. I'm super sold on him. I mean, he showed a bunch of it last year too. Like, I think he was one of the standouts for them. The wild card here is still, it's always going to be Kuminga. And they've had Kuminga in the starting lineup early on, but they didn't match his qualifying offer. And he's a guy that, you wonder, I mean, again, the potential still is off the charts. He's a great athlete, but he's just to this point hasn't fully put it together. He only kind of gives you flashes of it. I think that's going to be one of the bigger questions that Golden State has to decide on. And I mean, Kuminga do it himself as an extent. It's like, what type of contract are you going to play yourself into? He's a guy that's been hyped here for a while. Obviously, they spent a pretty high draft pick on. So you're interested to see, what happens there. It was good to see Wiggins just back on the floor in general. It feels like a lot of his season was spent dealing with off the court issues last year, just going through some personal stuff. So, great opening night for him, 20 points there. I mean, the story so far has been Buddy Hield, right? Like, Buddy Hield is scorching in these first 2 games, like leading the team in scoring in both of them. And I mean, that's huge for a guy who, to put it bluntly, at the end of the Sixers year last year, like, he looked borderline unplayable at points. He finally got going in the one game, but I mean, we know he's a good shooter, but the question is his game going to translate to playoff time? But
and he has to, again, it's 2 games. So he has to come back to earth on that 3-point percentage, right? He's like 70, probably over 73% from 3 right now on this season, which is crazy. I mean, 5 for 7 and 7 for 9 in the 2 games, respectively. And again, against Portland and Utah, I don't want to take away from the wins, but there are bigger.
They're handling their business, though.
Yeah, I agree. It's just like, let's see this team against a team that you and I deem a playoff bound contender for the most part.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Another young guy that they have in the starting lineup is Trace Jackson Davis. I mean, he's still just 24 years old, so we're going to see what he can give them there this past year. I just like the vets they still have. Like, obviously, we've seen Kevon Looney play a bunch of playoff minutes, and it's crazy because, you call him a vet. He's still just 28 years old himself. But going out and getting a guy like DeAnthony Melton, who it's just been a lot of injuries more than anything in the past. Like, he's been excellent when he's been on the court, but taking a flyer on Melton and Melton taking the 1-year contract to try to play himself into a bigger one is something that I think can really work out for them. Kyle Anderson is another guy who I think is equipped to play good veteran minutes on this roster but still contribute. Like, he's not just there for locker room purposes. So, yeah, I don't think this team, again, I think they're a long way away from contending in the Western Conference, but I could see them getting out of the play-in position. Like, I think they're in position here to make a good push at the playoffs and, at least make the end of Steph Curry's career competitive. Like, I feel like you owe that to him. I would still love to see Golden State take the big swing. Like Carlton and I talked about it a little bit on last podcast, but it's like, if Jimmy Butler ever asks out and is disgruntled, like Golden State is kind of one of the teams I would like to see take a swing on him. Like, because they have some of those younger guys that you can make a deal work that way. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But this is a long way from that 2 timelines approach that I think they were doing at one point, but it does feel like this is a more well-rounded Warriors roster than in the past.
I agree. No, I agree with it. And I think already seeing more positive vibes around the team than I potentially thought we would see.
Yeah. I mean, no doubt about it, but let's go right from positive vibes to negative vibes, to say the least. I'm gonna do my Wizards book report. Man, I should have thought of it like a title on the fly. The wacky and winless Wizards for Cooper Flag, but I mean that doesn't really flow as well there.
Bail for Flag.
I mean, listen, like we're trying. I think that's the direction they're going. Which. I don't know. It can't be much worse than last year. Like they were 15-67 last year. I think the only reason that probably they didn't get more attention is just because of Detroit, like Detroit being historically bad as well. Big additions overall mostly came in the draft. Drafting Alexander Sarr at number 2, drafting Bub Carrington as well. They also brought in Jonas Valanciunas. They brought in Malcolm Brogdon. They brought in Sadiq Bey. Big subtractions from last year: Denny Avda, Tyus Jones, Landry Shamet, among others. I mean, of course, we know what it is around this team last year. It was kind of a meme team, if you will. You got Kuzma, you got Jordan Poole. You essentially had kind of free reign to do whatever you want to do. And it went almost the way that it expected and played them into that high pick. I'm interested here, though, because weirdly, Alexander Sarr has kind of had a rough start here, but I'm still pretty high on his potential overall.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. I mean, it's only one game, and it is against Boston, so that's a big, big ask right off the rip for an NBA debut.
Of
but
course.
1 of 7, 14% field goal percentage, 0 for 5 from 3, 5 rebounds, 2 blocks, which I think is a positive to look at. But 2 points on the game is pretty rough.
It is, and he's more of a potential play. I mean, he's still 19 years old. Like, I think there may be a larger adjustment for Alex Sarr than there would be otherwise for a traditional rookie to come in and just be NBA ready right away. But I do still, kind of love his potential overall. And I think getting him a solid vet like Valanciunas, a guy who's played in all sorts of different teams at this point, like has been in a number of different roles as a backup, as a starter. I think that can give him a lot of shield as well. And they've kind of got some, I don't want to say interesting, but you've got Marvin Bagley here on a cheap deal. You've got Rashawn Holmes here on a cheap deal. Like they have veterans in that locker room, which I think will be good to kind of just make it a little more serious this year. Like, I think that's the elements you're trying to get rid of, right? Like, you just want to start to have the foundation of something. And I don't know, like, I was high on Carrington as well. Like, I think that was a great pick where they got him. I think he is maybe more of an instant impact guy for this team. They also got the deal with Kispert done, a 4-year extension. I'm really hoping they don't trade him. Like, that's a guy who I think has been a little bit of a developmental success story there in Washington, which have been few and far between the past few years. So, you just have to figure out what you're doing. I think it's going to be another ugly season. I don't think anybody doubts that. Like, I think this team is going to be in the bottom of the Eastern Conference. The good news for them is that this is an extremely, for as low as last year's draft was touted, it's quite the opposite this year. Like, this is expected to be a draft with multiple high-end prospects. So, it's a good year to go under. Big questions, of course, with a guy like Kyle Kuzma. I think he's still super attractive to a lot of contending teams right now. It's like, do you move him? Is Kuz willing to make that move? I mean, he said that he's wanted to stay here in Washington and be a part of that because he's been, these rumors have swirled around him before.
Well, because you would think a player that is getting to that part of their career, in Kuzma's timeline, would be ready or wanting to kind of win. And I get it if that's not, And I'm not saying he doesn't want to win, but if he wants to do it in a different way than like jump right into contention kind of deal, there is going to be a process in this situation that might take a little longer instead of like you were talking about with Jimmy Butler potentially going to a Warriors and being right there in the fight. Because that could be a little, things could be a little different.
Yeah. Bilal Coulibaly is another younger guy who I think you're going to, I mean, this is year 2 for him now. So he's another guy who is still very young. They've bet on potential wise. Like if he's able to break out and kind of prove that he can be a piece, I think that'll be huge for this core. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, this was the worst season in franchise history last year. So again, it's hard to be like, hey, it'll be that bad again. Even if just one of these things works, it'll be a lot better. But again, don't really expect a leap this year. I mean, even with the additions, like you signed Sadiq Bey knowing that he's coming off an ACL injury and that he's out most of the year. But Sadiq Bey's a guy who's young, like you get the potential still. So I think you make that move.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew that going into the season. That's not a surprise. But, even a guy like Malcolm Brogdon, who would be a guy that really provides a lot of stability there, especially post losing Tyus Jones, like Brogdon's kind of a consummate vet, but the problem is he gets hurt a lot. And guess what? He's already hurt. He's dealing with a thumb injury. So it's like you're already down 2 of your big offseason acquisitions. I don't know. Like I am more positive about the Wizards' direction than I've been in recent years, just because they have a few young guys here who maybe can develop. And I think you're going to have another high pick here sooner than later. But yeah, I mean, you're arguably the bleakest part of the rebuild right now. It's not going to be, I don't think it'll be worse than last year because it feels like they have a plan, but it's going to be pretty brutal. Like this team's going to be at the bottom of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a pretty fair bet. Competing for high picks again. So I think that does it on our book reports. What grades do we get? I wonder.
I don't know. That'll be up to you guys. Let us know in the comments. Tweet us, Justin and I at Justin C on the air, me at Rafuse to lose.
I don't know why this upset me the other day, and it really shouldn't have, but I saw someone from ESPN post like NBA season starting, tweet us your favorite NBA podcast. And I was like, I wonder if we're in here at all. And it was all just ESPN podcasts that people were tweeting back. And I was like, oh yeah. Okay.
I'm sure they weren't bot farming at all.
Right,
There definitely was nothing
like,
there either.
I know what this is, and I'm just going to get off this before I get mad. But
I'm just still grateful that people listen to us and that we are in season 12 right now. Like that's not something I take for granted either as we get rolling. I mean, technically it's like season 11 and a half if you really want to get into it. The first season of the show, we only caught the tail. It was post All-Star break, so we caught the tail end of the season.
It was like towards the back. We talked trades. I still get wrecked for one of my trades that I wanted the Sixers.
We have a lot. We had a bunch back in the day. Because we caught that finals. Like I remember covering that finals where the Spurs bounced back. Like that was the redemption Spurs year.
Yep.
And we've been rolling since. A lot of Golden State. I mean, we talked about it a little bit last episode too. Like obviously parity has been higher in the NBA here ever than in recent years. I mean, that'll be one of the big questions of the season. Like Boston feels like they're one of the best teams to, equipped to break that, I guess, in a little bit. Like Boston has an extremely great shot of repeating. But that's pretty unprecedented for the NBA. So it's kind of a fun time to be in right now.
One thing I'm very interested in is is OKC, just because of how talented they are. They do have a chance to be the number one in the West again.
I think they're the best team in the West for sure.
And on top of it, they have the Clippers first picks for like a little bit here.
Yeah.
So if the Clippers implode, like, dude, there is a weird.
Oh, no. Listen, they might get Cooper flagged, dude. If the Clippers implode, that's in play. And if that's in play, that is horrifying for everybody involved.
But I wonder, is there a chance if OKC were to win this year and then also have the first pick? I wonder if that's happened before.
The biggest example that I can think of off the top of my head is, and it's literally what brought the Stepien rule in, is the Lakers. The Lakers had won the finals and then got the number 1 overall pick the next year and got James Worthy, who just, by the way, casually is a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah.
So NBA literally put a rule in place to prevent that. And in this case, I mean, there's nothing like,
you just pre-planned really well. Like, the trades worked out for sure.
It all crumbled OKC's way, and we can talk about, we spent a lot of time on
That's
that
another
recently. We
episode,
don't need to kind of dig in that hole a little bit there. We are going to talk some Clippers a little bit and Ballin and Fallin, a preview for that. But welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast, first episode of season 12. I'm your host, Kevin Rafuse. Joining me as always, my co-host, Justin Cousart.
Rings on film.
God, I hate that for whatever Celtic player it is. You got to get me to hate already?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Is it Tatum? Is it Brown?
Nope.
Is it Derek White?
Nope.
Is it Drew Holiday?
Nope.
Is it Porzingis?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I was like, we're going to start to get to the bench here sooner than later.
Yeah, no, I was like, listen, if I'm going to have to do a Celtics nod, I'm not picking one of the top, 4 people that people would think about first, probably.
So. Well, I know there's one we're certainly not picking, so he who shall not be named on this podcast. Anyway, leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music, anywhere you can find your podcast, you can find us.
And we're on YouTube. You can find us Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube. Subscribe. There's a video version of the podcast. Obviously, the conference rundowns are up there. So if you want to go back and listen to some predictions we have before we get too far into this new NBA season, you can check them out there. And subscribe. You'll get notifications when new episodes are coming out.
And now a word from our sponsors.
So we kind of take a little bit of a dive into Pelicans because one of their biggest off-season and probably their biggest off-season acquisition from the Hawks is now injured. Murray has a broken hand and will be out indefinitely, although played through it, which is wild. Although as someone who also has fractured their hand and continued to go to the bars and drink, I understand. You don't know. You're in the moment, you're like, it's the adrenaline keeps you going.
Did you tell me you weren't a bro and you punched a wall or something?
No, it actually is related to NBA. So I feel like we can go down this path.
Go ahead. I want to hear this.
Down in St. Augustine on Riberia Street, if anybody knows St. Augustine, Riberia Street. If you're walking towards King Street, the main street where Flagler College is.
Yeah, King Street, for those who don't know St. Augustine, is the main road. It's where all the bars are. It's where all the historic stuff is.
Everything.
If you were to visit as a tourist, that's where you would go.
That's where you would go. And so one street back from that, we lived 5 streets back from that downtown St. Augustine. So we were walking to the bars, and
so this is while you were in college, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we were pre-gaming, and it was a pirate festival. So we were drinking rum, because St. Augustine does weird festivals like that. Yeah.
The Pirate Museum in St. Augustine is sick, by the way.
Owned by none other than Pat Croce. So
I think you told me that. That's incredible.
I literally served Pat Croce alcohol the night before he announced the Sixers sale, and he was partying.
That's wild. Yeah, I can imagine. I think Pat definitely did it well on that one.
He told me, he's like, yeah, I'm just celebrating. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what he's celebrating next morning. I saw the news. I was like, oh, that would explain why he ordered the really expensive tequila. So.
the biggest cash out.
Yeah. But either way, back to the story is I'm walking down Riberia Street. Flagler College has tennis courts on the side there as you're walking to the main street. And we had been back then, we played basketball daily because we lived right across from the school. There was a basketball court there. So we had played, we were drinking. So we were still basketball mindset. And I looked at the fence. It's a chain link fence. And I look at it and I go, how tall do you think that is? And my buddy knows he can egg me on, and rest in peace to him. He's recently passed away, but he goes, it's probably 10 feet, like a basketball, like if you were going to dunk it, which you can't do. So don't even try. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't touch the top of that? He goes, you're not going to be able to jump to the top of this chain link fence and grab the top. And I'm like, I sure can. And he goes, okay, let's see you do it. And so I take a running start. Hands are going back and forth as I'm running as hard as I can to go up. And I kind of, get into that jump formation, and I go up. And as I lift my right hand up to kind of start to try to reach the top, my pinky finger and index finger go into the chain link fence because I was so close to it. And at that point, because I was drunk, it hadn't registered. So with all my might, I jumped as hard as I could to get to the top. And my hand is now going forward, and there's a piece of metal stopping half of it from going. So those two fingers fully went back and touched the side of my wrist. And so I got a boxer's fracture, which is what they call it, the pinky finger. What I don't even know. But I immediately knew, like it broke. I knew.
Yeah.
I immediately knew, and I was like, "Oh my god, I just broke my hand." And my buddy's like, "Well, you want me to get you a taxi?" Because Ubers weren't a thing at that point. I'm now aging myself. He's like, "Do you want me to get you a taxi, take you to hospital?" I mean, like, and I was like, "Well, what are they gonna do? They're just gonna wrap it up and put it in a cast. I could do that tomorrow. They're gonna tell me to put ice on it. So let's just go to the bar. I'll get a beer and I'll just put ice on my hand the whole night." And that's what I did.
Okay. Hey, I mean, good for you. I mean, that's more your flu game, I guess, than I feel like this episode is.
I ended up waking up the next morning. I went to the hospital because at that point my hand really, really hurt.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because again, I was drinking, so things were numb. But when I woke up and was hungover, there was some pain. So I went and they were like, "Yeah, you broke your hand." They put me in a cast for a month or so, and that was that.
There you go. All right. DeJounte Murray's out 4 to 6 weeks.
He did not break his hand that way.
Yeah,
But
he didn't.
that
He did
being
not.
said, he played that whole game, or he finished the game or something like that. Like that's
No, he did. Well, that's why it was so unfortunate. Is that it was kind of towards the end of the game.
yeah.
And I mean, if you're a Pelicans fan, that was pretty much the ideal start that you wanted from DeJounte Murray, right? Like it was hard to argue with that. You were getting exactly what you needed. He kind of took over late in the game, 10 assists, and then just kind of blanked it a little bit. So it's unfortunate. The Pelicans did win last night. I don't know if you saw that Zion game-sealing block against Portland. That's really good to see for them.
And it is worth mentioning that there was also some comments that Murray was dealing with some family stuff too. So rough week in general for him.
Yeah, and I mean, you just like his shooting was honestly the first game left a little to be desired. Like he didn't hit a 3-pointer, he's 4-15 from the field, but he was just already like it was getting the teammates involved, and that's what I think you'd like to see is that again, 10 assists. His plus minus was positive overall. Like,
I mean, you put out a lineup of Murray, CJ, and Zion like that. You just tell me those three. I feel pretty decent about that.
Well, and that's the win. Like Zion didn't play the first game.
Right.
So I think that's where it's like, you get the double whammy of he doesn't play the first game, then he comes, but you don't have Murray, or you have Murray. Then the second game, you have Zion back, but you don't have Murray. So it's, I think, a little unfortunate from a chemistry perspective. Now, I mean, the good news for the Pels too is like, look, that game against Portland, that's a game you have to have. So I think you're amused as well, or you're enthused, I should say, not amused. Though I guess you are amused when Zion makes that game sealing block. Like that's what you like to see. Again, a little bit of a rough night from him from the field as well. Just 4-15, but 7 assists, 11 boards. So kind of made up for it in other ways.
Yeah.
Jordan Hawkins, the big story for them off the bench, 24 points off the bench the other night. That's huge. He's still a guy that I think can kind of break out here in year 2. But I mean, otherwise, I mean, I think this is obviously, it goes without saying, this is a blow for the Pelicans. I think, namely from the chemistry perspective, you wanted to, again, do that early, and injuries will rob you a little bit here. Now, the good news, again, this is a 4 to 6 week injury. It's not going to be the rest of the season, but for the Pels, I think who are really, Murray was kind of the move that you make with taking that next step in mind in a packed Western Conference.
Yeah.
They were in the play-in position last year. You're trying to get out of that, be in that top 6, depending on how the conference breaks, like that's just any one of these games may matter. With some of the teams that we talked about before, you talk about Golden State, you talk about the Lakers, who suddenly look a little more competitive right off the rip. Dallas is still there. Houston, who's we've talked about with their depth, like every one of these games is going to matter. So that's the biggest thing. Hawkins breaking out in the meantime, though, would be huge. Like that would really, from an offensive standpoint, if he can give them quality minutes off the bench like that every night, I think that'd be massive.
Yeah, I agree, and it's worth mentioning a player we talked about getting injured at the beginning of the season. Trey Murphy has also been cleared to return to the play condition phase of rehab. So that's at least from an injury standpoint, one player goes down, you have another one at least receiving some positive news to potentially make a return back. That's probably another 2 weeks or so. So that'll still be back at the beginning of the season. And then, like you said, Murray's 4 to 6 weeks. So it's not like a full season destroyer, if you will.
No, and I mean, look, short term, you can move CJ McCollum back over to point guard.
Yeah.
Which I mean, kind of one of the bigger reasons they got Murray was to put CJ back at 2, which I think is a little more natural. But he again can hold it down short term.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah, you mentioned the Murphy injury, fresh off contract, Trey Murphy, but maybe you start Jose Alvarado, which would allow CJ to stay at 2. That's an option. I think you'll probably get a little bit of both there. I mean, the other just natural impact too, as well, is that it just is going to be put more pressure on Brandon Ingram and Zion offensively. Like those poor shooting nights are going to add up if both of them aren't going. Ingram, you saw have a pretty high volume in this game against Portland the other night. I would kind of just expect to see more of that short term.
Yeah, and I feel like weirdly enough, through all this conversation, Brandon Ingram's one of the players that, for whatever reason, was forgotten about. Obviously, one of the better guys on the team, and one of the leaders on the team. I do like this Pelicans lineup when healthy. I'm interested to see what it would look like, and to that, we now have to wait a little bit.
Yeah, they're just reaching the prove it category with me.
Yeah,
I do as well. Like, I think the potential is still pretty high for this team. I like their kind of, I like their balance.
I mean, take it back to what I said earlier with Murray, CJ, and Zion. Add a fourth: Ingram, Zion, CJ, and Murray. Like that.
They needed a guy who could close games. Like, that was my big takeaway, and that's why I'm so high on this DeJounte Murray move. Like, DeJounte Murray has shown, if nothing else, that he's pretty good at the end of games. Like, he's a guy who can create his own shot, doesn't need anybody else. So they just didn't really have that last year. I think that kind of got exposed in the playoffs. Like, even with Ingram a little bit, he's been that at times, but yeah, and I think that's the big reason, was to take the pressure off Ingram offensively. And so that's where, again, 4 to 6 weeks, it's early. Like, if you're going to have this happen on October 26th, not, way down the line. But it's only tough because you're just like, in the Eastern Conference, you have that just kind of buffer where, like, the top 10 are going to be, there isn't really anyone that's going to crash the party. The Western Conference, you could definitely sell me on a bunch of teams and crash the party. Because, I mean, right now, the one team I thought that might slip out, and, like, we'll get to them here in a second, but, I thought the Lakers are kind of trending down. Early returns are up, but it's also, the challenge that we go through every first episode of the season is like, hey, don't overreact to 2-game sample sizes. Like, let's not jump off the cliff just yet.
These episodes at the beginning of the season literally should just be called sample size. Like,
and it's like, I'm not rooting for the Murray injury, obviously. Like, this is unfortunate for a team that I think you and I both enjoy watching, that we're both still pretty high on overall, but it did guarantee give us something to talk about.
Maybe next episode we do a thing called sample size, where you and I are only allowed to react to a team with, like, maybe we do it with all teams. It might take a second, but we do it with all teams, and we can only react with like one sentence or one word, and you're not allowed to expand on it. You can only say one word or one sentence, and then your mic is cut off.
I'm down. No, I'm super down for it.
That could get us into some audio clip trouble. Like, we could really get held to some things if we can't explain ourselves.
No, listen. No, well, I think we'll be all right. Shout out to the 2-0 club right now, by the way, with small sample size. Out west, you got Golden State, the Pels, and the Lakers.
And I would say Thunder and Mavericks can, like, be on that list. They're not 2-0, but they haven't lost yet. They've just only played one game.
Yeah, they're 1-0.
Yeah.
In the East, actually, everybody in the East has played. Well, no one's 1-0 in the East. There are a couple teams that have only played one game.
Wizards and Heat. Yeah, Wizard and Heat have only played one game so far.
Yeah, 2-0 club in the East right now is the Celtics, the Cavs, the Hawks, and the Magic. Maybe not surprises there.
Hawks a little bit. I mean, again, just looking off teams that I think are going to be good this year.
Yeah.
I would say Hawks look like a surprise just because I don't expect to see them at the top of the East,
Their
in
schedule's been
general.
favorable, which has helped. Like the Hawks should be 2-0. Like they played Brooklyn, who we
Right,
don't think is going
right,
anywhere fast this year, and they played the Hornets without Brandon Miller. Like
right,
those are games that listen, I'm a little lower on the Hawks than some of these other teams, obviously,
right.
but those are games that the Atlanta Hawks should be winning.
Are there any, winless teams that kinda surprise you right now? That would be Kings, Clippers, Spurs, Nuggets, Trailblazers, Jazz,
I mean,
76ers, Pistons, Nets, Heat, Wiz.
no, I mean, not really. Like the Kings and the Nugs are 0-1, so I'm not about to be like, oh man, I can't believe
Burn
that.
it up,
The
burn it
Sixers,
up.
the Sixers 0-2 would be concerning if they had their entire roster, but
It's
like you haven't played
concerning.
with Joel and you haven't played with Paul George, so like that's about to be expected.
But it's only concerning to me because I think this is gonna be a lot of what this season is, and if you can't win without those 2, then I have worries.
Oh, well, yeah, no, I hear you. Like I am extremely worried that the Sixers will be flirting with play in position way too much depending on how these injuries go. And I mean, they're going to get PG back it looks like in 2 games. Like I think that will obviously be helpful and should, gut a few of these wins out, but yeah, I mean, there's not, you know, the Eastern teams are taking the regular season seriously. Like there's
Yep.
not you're not going to be able to kind of catch somebody slipping, whether it's, the Knicks, the Pacers, the Hawks, the Cavs, like all these teams are going to be trying. And I think that could definitely hurt you. You can't afford to kind of cruise and wait. Like, you saw it last year with the Sixers a little bit, how that affected their seeding. Like then you already have a road series in the first round. You have to go into the Garden. Like that it's tough. Maybe you end up with Boston first round. Like that's gross if you're the Sixers.
Do you feel like you feel safe saying a specific team that might surprise us this season?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, so I think Orlando is going to surprise people in the sense that I think they're going to be a lot better than people realize. Like, I think Orlando could contend towards the top of that Eastern Conference. And
Okay.
again, 2-game sample size, but like if Anthony Black takes the leap too as that kind of secondary point guard, yeah, look out. Like, because I'm super high on Banchero. I liked going to get KCP. We've talked a lot of Magic recently, so like I'm not going to run down the list of all that again. But I think from a like contender perspective, I could see them creeping up there. Um, I don't know. It's hard for me to clarify Memphis as a surprise, but I mean,
Yeah.
just having Morant back, I think will put them maybe back on people's radar. The other one is probably Houston. Houston has a lot of depth. Like they have 12 to 15 quality players. Like Houston may run into the issue of like, where do we play all these guys? Like, I don't know how to give, Ime Udoka is going to have to figure out how to distribute all these minutes, but I could see Houston kind of, jumping into the playoff picture and for, casuals who maybe aren't familiar with somebody like an Alperen Şengün, that'll kind of be their first intro to him. But there's a lot of young talent there. Like them drafting Reed Shepherd at 3, I think was a great pick. Again, if you get a guy like Jabari Smith who breaks out, or you get like a year 2 Amen Thompson breakout, you can kind of it starts to get a little more, road to the playoffs gets a little more clear there for Houston.
I think the only other team maybe I'd throw in that, um, on the West is the Spurs. I am interested to see what the veteran leadership with Chris Paul and Wembanyama getting another year under his belt looks like. I am curious on that. Again, that's just from a surprise standpoint. And then, yeah, on your end, I wonder. Bulls are another one that I've kind of looked at. I even talked to you off the mic about it with Kobe White and how great of a season he had last year, and looks to be continuing that already this season. I wonder what that looks like because of how the vibes were with the Bulls last year. It really was just like, let's get rid of everybody, with DeRozan leaving, and so like, I do wonder what that looks like for the Bulls this year. Um, Not from like, I think they're gonna be competing at the top in the East, but I think they could be pushing maybe somebody out in the play-in tournament that would be maybe surprising.
Yeah, the Bulls and the Hawks are like that. They're
Yes.
the buffer teams, right? Like I
Mhm.
don't think they're elite, but I
Do
don't
you
think
put the
they're
Raptors
bad
there
either.
too? Do you put the Raptors there now too?
I guess if they start to, I'm not as sold on their
Yeah.
core just yet. Like it could be if Scotty Barnes continues to take the steps and like really becomes elite this year. If a guy like Grady Dick has a great year too, there's a few ways for it, but I need to see a little more before I'm putting Toronto there.
Yeah, I feel you. Okay. I'm just curious.
Chicago too, just like Chicago has just more vets. Like even with Vooch is declining, but like whatever, he's still like he's done this before. I mean, it's like you said, it's great to see Lonzo back. Hopefully he can just give you anything positive, but it's good to see him on the floor regardless.
Yep.
The big question, obviously, with Chicago is just like, are we going to get Zach LaVine moving? Like, you want to see what this team looks like. And that way you can give a guy like Josh Giddey too. They brought in an increased role. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, but you got to find out after making the move. So,
Right.
I still can't believe, God, I don't want to keep piling on Chicago for this, but like, I can't believe OKC got Caruso for what they did. Like, that's already such a heist. Like, it took 2 games for me to like, and I was there from the beginning, but it was like, how did this happen?
I mean, we talked about it. We thought it was a good move, and like you said, it's already
Great
done.
move for
Yeah,
OKC. Yeah, no, I get why OKC.
OKC,
It's more of Chicago, where I'm like, Chicago, you could have got so much more during the season.
OKC's whole moves and stuff they've been doing, when we look back at it, whenever like the run is over, it's going to be like, holy hell, they just continued to make correct move after correct move.
It just all worked out. Like
Yeah.
they were awful for a few years. The Clippers trade has been a massive success. Like SGA breaking out and being like a legitimate MVP candidate has obviously changed everything too. They have though. They've hit on their draft picks.
Mhm.
And this, like, the reason I'm so bullish on OKC this year compared to last year is just like I like the supporting moves they made. Like I know Hartenstein hasn't played yet, but I thought that was a great get. Going out and getting Caruso, like those are the guys you need to get you over the top. And I think they just like it's a complete roster now, assuming that everyone, continues to develop. Like Jalen Williams, I think is only going to get better. Chet Holmgren is only going to get better. You've got SGA, you've got a defensive terror like Lou Dort. There's a lot to like about this. Or like, again, they're the favorites to me in the Western Conference. And there's a very visible path to them winning the finals. I think the only reason I'm not like more beating that drum is just because Boston's so complete too. And Boston has played together the entire, now has done this championship run. So I think that'll make them more formidable as well. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad. So Justin, I'll start with you. Who is balling this week?
I forgot to I got to, because I forgot to mention this during our Pelicans talk. For the first time in 570 days, the Pelicans have finally won a game after trailing to start the fourth quarter. That's wild.
That is wild. That's insane. Wow.
The last time they did, the last time they did it was April 5th, 2023. They beat the Memphis Grizzlies in overtime after trailing 90-85 in the fourth quarter. But that wasn't my original balling. My original balling was going to the Lakers for the first time. There's that damn bug. For the first time in 13 years, the Lakers are 2-0. We again talked about this off the mic. Is one, that's a wild stat. Two,
that's crazy. I'm sorry. That's why that was my reaction there. I can't believe they haven't been 2-0 for 13 years.
13 years, and obviously a huge win column check mark, green light looking situation so far for the JJ Redick era in LA. One of the early observations off of it is something that I feel like was pretty common sense and maybe was not being done for whatever reason, is that he's running the offense through Anthony Davis as the number one scoring option instead of LeBron James. And I'm sure LeBron's okay doing that, stepping back a little bit, obviously not as much. He's still going to be putting up a ton of points, but Anthony Davis being the number one scoring option, can it be sustainable throughout the season? Let's find out. And also congratulations to Bron and his son becoming the highest scoring father-son duo in NBA history.
That ain't right. That ain't right. No, shout to LeBron and Bronny though. That was cool. I'm glad the Lakers are doing the right thing and having him go play in the G League a little bit too. Like that is so, there are ways for Bronny to become a successful NBA player. It's just he needs that seasoning, and getting those real game minutes down in the G League will help a ton.
He needs the reps. Yeah.
It really is though, because I mean, the reason I was so like down on the Lakers going into the season is it just like they haven't really changed the personnel at all. But I'll tell you what, you're JJ Redick, man, the early returns have been great. Like it does look like they are so much more well coached than they were last year with Darvin Ham. And again, 2 games, so you don't want to jump off the cliff, but Yeah, I mean, Austin Reeves, 26 points the other night against the Suns, obviously a massive offensive output for him, and they needed it because D'Angelo Russell was kind of quiet. But yeah, I mean, originally when LeBron came to the Lakers, that was the whole point with Anthony Davis, right? Is that AD was going to take over and kind of like allow LeBron to age gracefully. You know, you've won the title, but I think a lot of these times, just due to injury and due to other things, it's been LeBron kind of carrying the load, which again, he's LeBron James, but as he pushes 40, like that's not your ideal regular season workload. Like you want to save LeBron to just be ready for the playoffs if you're going to make any moves. And yeah, I mean, if you're getting a healthy, motivated Anthony Davis like this, and he's able to be the focal point of the offense and really carry that load every night, we already know he's one of the best defensive players on the planet. Like that does change the outlook radically. And it, again, allowing LeBron to pick and choose his spots, like that to me, you can sell me on the Lakers. Again, I'm not about to just bump them up to the Western Conference favorites or anything like that. But, you know, this is a team I kind of had flirting around the play-in position. It's like, if you're going to get out of that, this is what you got to do.
No, I completely agree. And again, let's see how far it goes. Let's see how far it goes down the line. But early returns are feeling really good.
Good start for JJ. Definitely what you wanted to see.
It's what you needed, because anything less would have immediately been media hell.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. And Dalton Connect's a guy too that I liked a lot when they drafted. There were a lot of Sixers fans who were already doing we should have taken Dalton Connect, which is like, that's such a bad, like, it was a win-win with Jared McCain or Dalton Connect. I'd have been fine either way. But I'm not going to not praise that pick for the Lakers too. Like, there's a reason I was high on him as a prospect. I think they got one there. So
I also just saw this on Reddit because of the Buddy Hield thing. I was looking for something that I couldn't find. I was going to bring up, but either way, they're calling Buddy the Splash Buddy for the Splash Bros. He's Splash Buddy now on the Warriors.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, that is kind of funny. I do like that. All right, Ballin for me, excuse me. We're gonna stay in LA and go over the Clippers a little bit. I know it's been a lot of negativity around the Clippers, but I do want to highlight the opening of the new Intuit Dome out there. Specifically the wall. The wall is this section where it's only Clippers fans. It's kind of soccer style, but it's basically just behind the opponent's basket. Like, you've got this just massive vertical wall of fans that are all going crazy. They're chanting, like, this is like the diehard supporters, if you will. I loved seeing Steve Ballmer out there in the wall, really getting everybody rallied up. I do appreciate Steve Ballmer's enthusiasm for this team. It definitely feels like he cares a little bit. Obviously, it's been a huge project for that franchise, getting this open, having their own arena, kind of not being little brothers to the Lakers in your own home floor. It just looks like a blast. Like, this is instantly like, I want to go to the wall. Like, the wall looks like a great time right now.
Yeah, it looks fun. And I would imagine for somebody shooting free throws is a pretty daunting looking situation. Like, there will be pressure moments at time, but then having that pressure moment with an entire wall of opposing fans against you is pretty cool too. And I think that's a fun way to give yourself a little home court advantage in a way.
Yeah, there's nothing else like it in the NBA. I like the Clippers kind of leaning into that.
Yeah, completely agree. That being said, now that we said positive things about them, let's bring them back down to earth. They are being sued by a trainer after allegations that Kawhi Leonard faced unsafe and illegal treatment. Randy Shelton is suing the team for wrongful termination, among other claims. One of which I read was after he suggested a time frame for Kawhi Leonard to come back from knee injury in 2022. I think his time frame was like in the 700 days range, and obviously that was not appreciated, I guess, in this situation. And so, you go back and you look, there were a bunch of injuries that happened after that maybe could be linked to coming back too early. So this could get ugly. And I do wonder if this maybe was some of the things that PG-13 saw going on behind the scenes that he just didn't want to be a part of. Just making assumptions on that end, but this could get ugly for the Clippers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad look. Like, no matter what, it's bad. Do I think
Especially
they're
because players are going to see this and go, well, why the hell would I want to play there?
Yeah, but you know what I feel about tampering, though. Like, I think every team tampers. So I feel like everyone's trying to be like, well, they were trying to land Kawhi early. No, duh. Like, hello. We know they were trying to bring him home. Everyone was talking about Kawhi going back to LA because he's from LA. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really care about the tampering.
No.
If they were aware of how serious his injuries are and how, like, because the defense for because, like, look, now that the chips have fallen, that trade in hindsight is a disaster for the Clippers. The way it's went with all those picks, with how SGA is developed, like, you're definitely probably not enthused about that. I will always defend that trade because, everyone points it as, you traded that for Paul George. No, you traded it to guarantee Kawhi and Paul George. Like,
Yeah.
I think you have to look at it as the duo of them going together. I will always take that swing, and I give the credit to the Clippers for taking that swing. It's just, I mean, if you had, like, Kawhi, it has. Like, it's tanked every one of these seasons so far. Like, even when they've genuinely been a contender, it's tanked every one of those seasons. I mean, my biggest beef with not bringing Paul George back for them is it's kind of like, look, like, you signed Kawhi to that extension. That means you're trying to keep this window opening. Like, to me, you close it as soon as you don't bring Paul George back.
Yeah.
That to me is the biggest takeaway. It's like, look, everyone knew the injury risk. I mean, the way San Antonio ended, the Toronto run is the best thing that ever happened to Kawhi Leonard. And I think him staying in Toronto will always be one of the all-time NBA what ifs, but it's like, that's what kind of, allowed for this second half of the career. But it's not great. It's all bad.
It's not good. Interested to see where it goes. A lot of the NBA insiders will be reporting on it. So
Lakers fans are trying to dunk on the Clippers about this. And I'm like, yo, Lakers fans, y'all were 100% trying to get Kawhi to be that third with LeBron and with AD. And you know what? They would have been pretty invincible if that had all worked out. So it's like, let's not do revisionist history here.
We know what you all were trying to do. You're only hating on it because it wasn't your team that ended up with them. So, I get it.
All right. So Fallin for me is Brandon Miller. He's out at least a week with a glute injury, a strained left glute in particular. He sat out of the second half of the game of their opener against the Rockets, but this is already a team that we're not expecting to be that great. Brandon Miller is one of the few bright spots in that franchise right now. So it's just tough to start the season. They say he's going to be reevaluated in a week. Mark Williams, who's their starting center, is also out right now. So double whammy there for the Hornets.
Yeah, and at least in that game, played 10 minutes, so at least got the reps into the second year playing for Brandon Miller. But you don't want to see any injuries. You want them, especially for the Hornets, to be able to put out a team that can get the reps under their belt and work towards whatever they're working towards. Not to throw too much shade at them, but that's where it is, really. Like,
Did you see LaMelo Ball's post-game interview the other night?
No.
I don't think I can repeat all of it because it was just so ridiculous. But like, they asked him about his relationship with Kemba Walker, and it's not even anything bad. It's just like it's peak like Gen Z, just zero awareness that you're on live television. He's like, "Oh yeah, he gang, I'm gang, like we gang." You know what I'm saying? It was just like, "Oh okay."
Oh,
and he dropped an F-bomb in there. Like,
storing it. Yeah.
Do you want to play the audio?
Let me see if I can find it real quick. Hold on. Post game on. I'm wondering if this is it. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
I feel like it's got to be. Parents, if we get this audio going, just give your kids a little earmuffs one quick. There's only one of them, but just don't say we didn't warn you.
Okay, I found it. I'm almost positive I found it.
It's post game,
right? Post game, literally.
Yeah, they ask him about his relationship with Kemba Walker. Kemba's back with the franchise now.
Yep. So here we go. I'm gonna pull up Charlotte Hornets post game. I'm not even signed into X. I don't care. Pull this up. Here we go.
Yeah. Here you go.
Hold on. Hold on. This is horrible podcasting. I don't think I shared audio, so I want to make sure that's on there.
Hey, listen, that's not horrible. Making sure the audio works is great podcasting, actually.
Big part. Oh my God, this bug. Okay, sorry. This bug is killing me. All right, here we go. LaMelo Ball post-game interview with Kemba Walker. This, by the way, better be bleeped out because it is posted to the Charlotte Hornets Twitter page.
No, it's Reddit. That is
it's
Reddit. Charlotte Hornets.
But it's yeah. Anything can be verified these days. Okay.
Yeah, right.
This probably isn't edited. Parents, cover your kids.
Are we getting
Game number 1, getting his poppers.
And we saw the handshake with Kimba. How much has he helped you prepare for this season?
Yeah, that's my brother right there. That's my dog. Like I said, he gang, I'm gang. We chilling all the time. I fuck with his family.
All right, LaMelo.
Played like the super.
You heard her be like, all right, LaMelo, I didn't understand any of that.
And like, you know what? It's all endearing. It's nothing bad. It's just hilarious. It's just like a Mellow, just zero awareness. Like, just.
Bro, you're on TV.
His family. You know what I'm saying?
Family. IF with his family. All right.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Should we play some Immaculate Grid?
Yeah, let's wrap it up with some grid real quick here. Let me pull up Immaculate Grid. Holy moly.
I really hope LaMelo stays healthy this season. I truly want him to, because just from a he's shown the flashes. I just want to see how good he's going to be in this league. I want to see a full season of him playing. But all right, for Immaculate Grid, of course, you can always watch on YouTube. Just search Dry Minute NBA podcast if you want to see the video version. But for the podcast listeners, of course, we got to do our columns from left to right. We've got the Celtics, we've got the Lakers, and we've got 10,000 career rebounds from top to bottom. We got Pistons, we got Knicks, and we got Finals MVP. So, yeah, I mean, we can kind of. There's a few of these I feel like we can cruise through pretty quick. Yeah, honestly, I don't think this is going to be difficult, Justin. I think we're going to get this pretty quick. So, I don't know. What do you think? Where do you want to start?
Well, Lakers Knicks, obviously Carmelo would be an easy plug.
Mm-hmm.
Lakers Knicks, Josh Hart would Josh Hart would also work in that situation. Off the top of my head.
Julius Randle works too.
Jeremy Lin?
Yeah, Jeremy Lin definitely does work.
Might be a little more niche than people would think.
The lowest one that I can think of so far is Mozgov. Timofey Mozgov works.
Oh, yeah, Mozgov. J.R. Smith would work too.
J.R. Smith does work. And you know what? J.R. Smith may be sneaky because I don't think people associate him with the Lakers at all because he wasn't playing real minutes for him.
Yeah. You want to go J.R.?
I would do J.R. there.
Oh my God, this bug! I'm gonna lose my mind.
Hey, you made it an hour too with only two interruptions so far.
All right, JR, right?
Yeah, I think JR definitely works.
There we go.
Yeah, he didn't play a bunch of minutes with the Lakers. Obviously, he was just kind of brought in as insurance there.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So for Lakers, Pistons, Celtics, Pistons. I mean, Lakers, Pistons. Dennis Rodman works for 10K rebounds for the Pistons and Lakers Pistons as well. I think he's going to be high in both of those. The other 10,000 career rebounds for Pistons that comes to mind right away is Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace definitely has 10K.
You said Andre Drummond, right?
I didn't say Drummond, and Drummond works for both of those as well.
Mm-hmm. You know who else works for?
Drummond has 10K rebounds, right?
Oh, I think so.
I'm pretty sure he has 10K
think so.
rebounds.
I think he's one of those ones we always debate, but I'm pretty sure he does.
Yeah, like he's one of the best rebounders of all time.
Oh, Lakers, Pistons, Caldwell Pope would work.
Caldwell Pope does work. That might be a good one. There's definitely more.
We saw him in Orlando. Stanley Johnson.
Yeah, that does work. That might be the move. He does. He because he got drafted by the Pistons. He was drafted high. Like I was big on the Stanley Johnson pick. He had a ton of athleticism. It just never really panned out. He did go to the Lakers late in his career. I think he was on the bubble team that won.
Was he really?
I'm pretty sure. He wasn't playing. He was on the bench, but
wow.
I'm pretty damn sure that Stanley Johnson was there. And if Stanley Johnson's there, he's gonna be low. Like he'll be way lower than anybody.
You want to do Stanley?
Yeah, he definitely. He played for the Lakers at some point. I can't guarantee that he was on the bubble team, but I know he played for the Lakers.
I know he played for the Lakers too, and I'm pretty sure his 2016 lines up perfectly with.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he got drafted by the Pistons.
Yeah,
for sure.
There it is, baby. 1%. Do we want to try Drummond at 10,000?
Yeah, I mean, it's out of Drummond, Wallace, and
Wow.
like Rodman, I
Oh.
feel like Drummond will be the lowest. I think it'll be high, but I think they're all going to be high. So I think it is what
Is
it
there
is.
any other like one-offs?
Nobody that I'm willing to bet the grid on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like who they're. I don't think any of their big men like during the Bad Boys years. I don't think any of them had 10K
No, but
like that.
any transitional period like Drummond situation. Although Drummond was big star for them. I'm talking.
Yeah, I mean,
Dwight
Greg Monroe never got to 10K. I'm trying to think of like the bad boy that might work if there's going to be a bad boy that works is probably like Bill Laimbeer. Which again, I don't know how low he'll be because he was on a team that won 2 titles. But I also think like he probably won't get like Drummond was relatively recent and Drummond's still playing. And so that's where I think he'll get the highness from. Like I would argue
right?
that Drummond's most successful tenure was on Detroit.
And you said Rodman, right?
Yeah, I think Rodman will be number 1.
He'll probably be number 1. Yeah, let's go Drummond. Let's just
I'm fine. I'm fine doing Drummond.
10.
10%.
I bet people didn't go Drummond just because they weren't positive if he was at 10,000.
Yeah.
I bet that's part of it. All right. So Knicks, Boston, obviously Kristaps Porzingis works. Kemba Walker works.
Kemba will be lower than KP.
Yep.
Oh man, Nixon. There's somebody obvious who
we had this. I remember this connection from a little bit ago. And I know it works for both because he is related to one of our former bosses. Shane Larkin works.
Oh, that's right. We got Shane Larkin be super low. We low key got to do that. The other one is oh my god, I just lost it.
Courtney Lee.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Mm-hmm.
When did Courtney Lee play for Boston?
Boston would have been because I played NBA 2K in college.
Okay, so he's like 2013 then. Okay, I always trusted
2014 had to have been the season.
I don't remember that at all, but I always trust your 2K hunches.
Yeah,
Every single one of them I did.
I had these random players that I always worked with, and I know Courtney Lee was on the Celtics at that point.
We said KP and Kemba. Oh my god, this third one is driving me crazy. I think we should go Courtney Lee because I think Courtney Lee is going to be really low, but this is driving me crazy.
KP, Kemba, Shane Larkin again. I think Shane probably would be lower than Courtney just because I don't know how many people know him.
There's somebody who played heavy minutes though, and that's why I'm blanking on.
I
don't think Gallo. I don't think ever suited up for Boston because he tore his ACL.
Are you thinking of the other David Lee?
David Lee, thank you. That's it. That is 100% it. He'll be higher, so we shouldn't do him. We should do Courtney Lee, but David Lee is it. Yes, because David Lee won Rookie of the Year with the Knicks.
And Nate Robinson, right? Nate
Robinson definitely works too. Yep, definitely.
So you want to go Shane? Although we already did that in a
we do Courtney Lee. I think Courtney Lee is going to be just. I don't think he'll be as low as Shane. Shane's going to be crazy, but I think Courtney Lee is going to be really low too because I don't associate him with Boston at all. Yeah, 1%.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I got to look this up now. I know he played for the Magic. I definitely remember him playing for the Knicks for a few years. Courtney Lee, 2013, 2014.
Yeah, he is early on.
He played one season with. He even played one season. He played 30 games with them.
He wasn't a whole. I thought he was there for at least a season and a half.
No, he went to Memphis actually that season. He went to Memphis and finished out the season there. He played for the Magic. He played for the Nets in New Jersey. So shout out to that.
Interesting.
Rockets for a year. He played for the Celtics. He played for the Grizz for a few. He played for the brief stretch with the Hornets, 3 years of the Knicks, and then he ended his career in Dallas. He had 2 seasons with Dallas. He got 22 games there in 2018, 2019, and he played 24 games in 2019, 2020.
So Celtics, Pistons, Blake Griffin is probably the obvious answer.
Yeah.
I think one of the Morris brothers is also an obvious answer.
Marcus definitely played for both. Because Marcus is there now, I think, maybe, or I know he's definitely there at some point. The throwback great. I think he'll be high, but Chauncey Billups works for Nets and Celtics.
Another who was a huge, I feel like he was a staple for Boston for a while. And I'm almost positive he got traded from Boston to the Pistons. Avery Bradley.
No, Avery Bradley definitely did. I would be down to use Avery Bradley. We haven't talked about him in a while. One of the better defensive players. He would have worked. You know what? He would have worked for Lakers Pistons too. He did play for the Lakers. I think Avery Bradley was on the title team.
Avery Bradley. Okay.
That's a good one, though. I like that a lot.
I remember Avery Bradley was a big name. We used to talk about him a lot on the podcast back
He was good. He played on a lot of like solid squads. I don't think he didn't win the title. He wasn't on the 08 team, but yeah, he was good for sure. And then there he is, Lakers jersey, front and center. All right. So for Knicks 10K rebounds, there's two obvious ones, and that's Patrick Ewing and Tyson Chandler are both for sure have 10,000 rebounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any random one-offs that would have ended up there for a second?
I don't know. My initial thought is Willis Reed, if you want to go older. I just don't know if Willis Reed played long enough to have 10K rebounds.
No.
And I don't know. I mean, they drafted Pat in the middle of the 80s. I don't think there's anybody like, did DeAndre Jordan ever sneak in with the Knicks somewhere?
That's what I'm wondering.
He might. Why do I feel like he played for the Knicks?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question.
I know he played for the Nets, but I feel like he played for the Knicks as well. And I kind of want to guess that. I feel good. I got a hunch. I feel good enough about it to guess it.
Okay, who?
DeAndre Jordan.
Oh, DeAndre.
Because Tyson and are both going to be Tyson and Patrick Ewing are both going to be really high. I think he played for the Knicks. And if not, I'm terrible. I feel bad. But yeah, all right. Yes.
Okay.
I thought he did. It wasn't long. It was like late career. He's bounced around like late. Like obviously everybody knows the Clippers. Everybody associates him playing for Dallas just because like after the fiasco, then he actually did end up playing there. Yeah, let me look this up. Yeah, he played 19 games for the Knicks in 2018, 2019. He was traded from Dallas to the Knicks, and he played 19 games there, and then he went to the Nets the following season.
Okay. All right. Well, more power to you then. Obviously, Jaylen Brown would be an easy answer for the Celtics, but most likely the most common answer, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Like, I mean, it's weird with Bill Russell because the Finals MVP didn't exist then, so you can't fall into that trap. That is the one big thing because, like, him and Bob Cousy would be from like back in the 50s.
Larry Bird.
Yeah, the obvious ones to me are the recent ones. So like Jaylen Brown, Paul Pierce won in 08, and Larry Bird definitely won Finals MVP in one of those 80s years. The two that I'm thinking that might be lower that for sure won Finals MVP, or one I'm for sure positive about. The other one I'm less Dave Cowens I'm less certain about. I don't know if he won Finals MVP. The one I'm sure won Finals MVP at some point is John Havlicek. Like he was their best player when they won in the 70s. Bill Russell had retired by then. I mean, he's an all-time Celtics great.
Do we just like go old school and go with Hav?
Yeah, because like I don't know if Casey Jones ever like won a.
Yeah. Listen, I know so little about NBA history in that fact. Like I could tell you Paul Pierce, I could tell you Jaylen Brown, and after that, and probably West, just because it's an assumption at that point. But I know he did. So
JoJo White's the only other guy I can think of. But again, like him or Havlicek would have maybe won one of those 70s ones, and I just feel better about Havlicek than I do about JoJo.
Let's do Havlicek then.
Okay.
Yeah,
6%. Okay.
So
I did, by the way, looking back in hindsight, Bill Laimbeer did have 10K for the Pistons, so that would have been the bad boy that won.
Okay.
I did check that out. I want to know if JoJo White. I'll have to look that out. I mean, Lakers Finals MVPs are easy too, right? Like you got Bron won final. Did he win or did AD win Finals MVP?
No, it was LeBron.
Was it?
Yeah. Well, but even if he didn't win it there, he won it with the Heat, so he has an MVP. So
you're right. Actually, that does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't have to be with the team, right?
No. Yeah, it's Finals MVP anywhere. So yeah, LeBron would work there. I mean, other finals MVPs for the Lakers. I mean, Kobe, Shaq,
Yep.
Magic. I don't know if Worthy ever had one. I'm sure Kareem had one at some point.
Magic, you said already.
Yeah. I mean, Jerry West, whatever year they won, Jerry West probably won it.
Wilt?
Oh,
Chamberlain,
that's
probably?
interesting. Yeah, man.
I mean, I'm just going on, like, again, this is history. Like,
Oh, well, Wilt would have won it. Yeah, Wilt would have won it at some point. But
That's
also,
what I
like,
mean.
I do, like, Wilt won so early that, like, did it exist yet? I don't know if it
don't know.
existed in 67.
I think Wilt got one. I'm just assuming, but so that's just an assumption. So if we don't feel great about it, I don't need
Oh,
to.
I think Wilt got one too. I wonder if it was, yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if it was with the Lakers. I do think Wilt has one.
You want to go Wilt?
Yeah, I'm fine going Wilt.
Yeah. Wow. 1%.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
I mean, that makes sense because it maybe not have been with the team. Let me see. I want to actually Google this now.
Okay.
It was with the team, actually.
That's
Yeah,
it.
he won.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, because it didn't exist. I mean, he won with the Sixers in 67, Wilt did, but I don't think it existed then because Bill Russell never won a finals MVP.
Wow.
And Bill Russell is like the ultimate winner. I mean, the award is literally named after him.
Yeah.
All
right. So finals MVP, 10,000 rebounds. I feel like Tim Duncan works. Shaq would work. You already mentioned him.
1969 was the first year with NBA Finals MVP, by the way.
Good year.
I'll have to go back and look and see who the first one was. Yeah, I mean, Finals MVP, 10K rebounds. It's like, how much time do you have? Like, Kareem is going to be one. David Robinson. Actually, I don't know if David Robinson won Finals MVP. Just take that he might have, but I'm not 100% sure about it.
Tim Duncan, Shaq.
Tim Duncan definitely. Shaq definitely.
Magic Johnson.
I don't know if Magic had 10K. The guards would be interesting because, like,
that would get weird.
I mean, LeBron's got to have 10K, right?
Ooh, that'd be interesting. Yeah, I mean, he has to.
LeBron has to have 10,000
long. He's played for so damn long and been so proficient at, like, what's his rebounds per game? Probably 7 a game, 8 a game,
something like that. Yeah, 7 or 8.
Should we just take a shot in the dark and go LeBron? Because he was most used for Finals MVP Lakers.
Well, they're going to be all big men. It's like Olajuwon will be high.
Let's do LeBron. Oh, as I spell his.
LeBron, LA Bron.
All right, should we go?
He's definitely got 10K. We are overthinking this. He for sure has 10K.
Yeah, we're good. Hell yeah.
All right, 36. Not too bad.
8% on him. Okay.
All right, so let's do our most final. JoJo White did win Finals MVP, by the way, with the Celtics in the 70s.
8 people work for Finals MVP Lakers.
Okay, so LeBron, Wilt. You know what? Let me pull this up because I looked at the first one. Jerry West was the first Finals MVP ever, by the way, in 69. So he would have worked there. So Jerry West would have worked. Kareem works for the Lakers. Wilt works for the Lakers.
Magic Johnson works.
Magic works.
Worthy
works. Okay, so
Shaq.
Worthy was one.
Shaq, Kobe.
Okay, that's 7.
And LeBron.
Okay, yeah, so that's 8. Okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
Who would have won? So Celtics would have been JoJo White, John Havlicek, Bill Walton. Bill Walton would have been a good one because he didn't win it he played for the Celtics. He won it with the Blazers, but that would have been a good one. That's probably the lowest. Cedric Maxwell in 81 for the Celtics would have been so low. I mean, because that's insane. I mean, Larry Bird definitely didn't win then. Larry Bird did win in 84 and 86.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it for Celtics then actually, dude, you know what? Shaq would have worked for the Celtics too.
Oh, that would have been an interesting.
Chauncey Billups would have worked for the Celtics because he won in 04. That would have been a good one. We mentioned Paul Pierce, who won in 08. Yeah, that's it. And then Jalen, who we mentioned too, obviously won it last year. All right. So most popular answers for everybody for Celtics Pistons was Blake Griffin. For Celtics or for Lakers and Pistons, Dennis Rodman. For Pistons, 10K rebounds, also Dennis Rodman. Knicks and Celtics, Kristaps Porzingis. Knicks and Lakers, Carmelo Anthony. Knicks 10,000 rebounds, Patrick Ewing. Celtics Finals MVP, Larry Bird. Lakers Finals MVP, Kobe. Finals MVP, 10,000 career rebounds, Shaq. So not really too much of a surprise there. To recap our grid one last time, for Pistons Lakers, we had Avery Bradley. Or no, excuse me, for Pistons Celtics, we had Avery Bradley. For Pistons Lakers, we had Stanley Johnson. For Pistons 10,000 career rebounds, Andre Drummond. For Knicks and Celtics, Courtney Lee. For Knicks and Lakers, J.R. Smith. For Knicks 10,000 career rebounds, DeAndre Jordan. Celtics Finals MVP, John Havlicek. Lakers Finals MVP, Wilt Chamberlain. And Finals MVP, 10,000 career rebounds, LeBron James. LeBron James. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Driving Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys as always. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. I'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Player FM, anywhere you can find your podcast, you can find us.
And follow us on YouTube for a video version of the podcast. You can watch me battle this freaking fly.
It's been entertaining. It's been quite entertaining. I'm not going to lie.
Episode, dude, is so annoying. I can't wait to leave this room. I'm not going to lie. Either way, you can watch us there. You can subscribe so you get notifications when new episodes come out, just like you can subscribe to the podcast anywhere you listen to your podcasts.